Well, hello everyone. Trish sprung this on me about half an hour ago and said, would I like to talk to you for 30 minutes? And she said to me, just tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do. And I thought, where do I start? Where on earth do I start? And so I thought that I would use the pictorial language of tarot. You can't see these cards, but the tarot tells a story of our soul's journey through life. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a framework, a little bit of background before I tell you what I do so that it makes sense, because nothing exists in isolation, and what we do comes from somewhere, comes from our own journey, doesn't it? You're all doing what you do because something led you there. Well, it's the same with me. So this first card I'm going to show you is the Star card. And so my journey with healing began in the early 1970s. And it came from a very real shamanic life and death experience where a situation in my life occurred that I questioned my reason for living. Spirit, God, if you have a reason for me, then show me now. And so that experience I went inward. So at that age, people around me, people my own age, were out there in the world doing what 17, 18-year-olds do. But that wasn't my reality. My reality was I went inward to what I call the world of soul. So that this card here shows that there's the figure looking inward and focusing on the waters. So that's the sacred waters within our being. So I started my healing journey primarily for myself. Now, where that led me was the next card here is the Ace of Swords. So that took me on a quest or a journey for knowledge, because something that could have destroyed me actually made me stronger, like a sword. The things that can happen in your life, that you come through them like the phoenix through the fire, or the fire destroys you. So I came through the fire and I wanted to learn and all that I could about this wonderful. I connected with my soul. I went inward, connected with my soul, and it was the most beautiful relationship, and I wanted to know more. And so I began studying astrology in the early 1970s. I began studying flower essence therapy. I began studying the tarot, and all of this in Sydney, and making my own flower essences, etc. And so I developed very, very real skills that were not just helpful for me, but were assisting other people. And people started to gravitate to me. Those that recognized something in me at that, I'd say, soul to soul level. So the conversations I was having with people weren't about, oh, what are you wearing, et cetera, et cetera. They wanted to talk to me about deep, meaningful things, because they had plenty of people that would talk to them about outside stuff, but they had nobody who could hold a sacred space for soul, to be with soul and for soul. So it's like the inner person. If you're not comfortable with the word soul, the inner person. And so I learned all I could, not as a theory, but as a gnosis, because a theory, you've learned something and you've learned a technique, as opposed to you know it in your bones. So people might say, oh, I don't believe in astrology. I don't either. I just understand it works. It's not about believing. So that gnosis and understanding. And so what happened was, as I continued to see more and more and more and more clients, and I realized that that it's not about putting people into categories, but I understood there was a medicine wheel. And while I'm Native American on one side of my family, I'm not talking about the Native American medicine wheel. I'm talking about a universal medicine wheel that is not limited to your culture, because we're all universal citizens. We're all souls on this amazing journey of evolution and growth. So there was a journey that people went on. It didn't matter age, creed, color, religion, all the same. And that journey was, if you think of a circle divided into 4 quarters, and the first part of that was the pain, the pain that drove people to go to somebody for help, whatever that help might be, for assistance. And so that began a person's healing journey. So for me, they were coming to me at a soul level. They wanted somebody who could hold them in that container in that way. But what I found was, once that connection with soul happened, then they wanted to help others. Do you see that I was drawing people to me who wanted a deep relationship with their inner self? Once that had been established or re-established and sacred relationship was in the life and soul had a voice, then they wanted to help other people. And so that was when I was spirit directed, because my whole life has been spirit directed. Then I began putting in place educational structures. So I have 3 training establishments. So the First Light Flower Essences of New Zealand, which is a school that trains vibrational medicine therapists. So very, very powerful healing modality. And I have the Medicine Woman Centre for Shamanic and Esoteric Studies. What that does is that in my years of working with clients, a lot of healers came to me. And what I understood was people could train in a modality, spend a lot of money training in a modality, but they didn't know the inner rites of passage. And so they would burn out. Healers would, those on the healing and helping profession, would burn out or die, or all sorts of reasons. And so in the ancient earth wisdom traditions, those on the healing and healing profession, which is all of you, didn't just learn the modality, they learned the rites of passage of that path, of stepping onto that sacred path of assisting another person at whatever level that might be. There's things you have to know. And so Medicine Woman Centre for Shamanic Studies is the inner rites of passage of those who have stepped forward to help others on their journey. And the next piece of the picture, you might say, or the offering, is the Esoteric Hypnosis Training Academy. And so my area of specialty is working, let's call it a soul-centered basis. We're working with the soul of another person. It takes nothing away from, people may come to a hypnotherapist for all sorts of reasons, but those that I train people to work at a soul level with a client, soul to soul. And so that's a very real, that's a very, very real need in my understanding. Just as a need for clinical hypnotherapy, there is just as big a need, especially now with what is happening in the world, where there is so much going on, that there is a real need to work at that level. That there has always been a need to work at that level. It's just even more so now. So if we're looking at the judgment card here, and we look at the journey of the soul, and we look at, okay, somebody comes and they're coming for assistance for the immediate problem or pain. Now that might be, it could be anything from stress to anxiety, you know more than anyone the type of reasons people will come to you. But what I found was after that, oh, my life's fine now because I no longer do whatever it is that I don't want to do anymore. What then? What then? Okay, have a great life, but what the soul within us is geared to evolve and grow. It's here to, at a certain point of time, at a certain point in the soul's evolution, it wants, the person wants more than just the new house or the new car. It's what's the meaning of life? What's it all about? I have millionaire clients, multi-millionaire clients. What's the meaning of life, Franchelle? I want to know. Because at a point, those things that, oh, if I have that, I'll be better. Sure, but what then? And so this card here shows that the soul is geared to want more, to understand what's my purpose, why am I here, and to be in sacred relationship with itself. So that's when the life, that call within to go deeper into oneself, So yeah, my area of expertise, as I said, is this card's the Hierophant. So the Hierophant is, right, there's an area of expertise where those that want to work at that level, clients that want to work at that level, want to work in the understanding their soul, coming into sacred relationship with soul, and hypnotherapists who want to work with clients in that way, that there is an establishment that provides that for them. So if we look at this card here, which is a Temperance card, and you'll see there's a figure with 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on the ground. And that shows our nature, that we have an inner aspect of ourselves and we have an outer aspect of ourselves. And one isn't better than the other. We just need to have balance in this in the psyche, because the word psyche actually means soul. So when you think about it, the word psychotherapy or psychologist originally meant listening to the soul. You think about that. But somehow the word's been hijacked and it now means you are just a mind and a body. Well, I can assure you, you are not just a mind and a body. And your clients aren't just a mind and a body. So our soul and our inner self, our outer self, being able to be in relationship with both of those, that they're both important. And how do we bring those together? So that's my job. We recognize, right, there's the aspect of the person that's out there in the world doing what they've got to do, running their business, their family, their home, with all of the things that go with that. But it's going to be so much easier and so much better when actually there's teamwork going on and we have that relationship with soul. And if we look at adding a third component in there, so if you think of a triangle and you say, right, there's what I call our personality self, our outer self. That's the part that's got to go and deal with what it's got to deal with. There's our soul, and then we have a spirit or higher self. And when we have that sacred relationship, that triangle of power, we are truly living, in my understanding, because then our decisions aren't made from our personality self. So if we're making decisions from our personality self, it changes its mind all the time, doesn't it? One moment we think this, we like this, and then we change our mind. It is the most unreliable aspect of ourselves to make major decisions from. Can't be trusted. It's changeable, just like our body's always changing, our emotions are always changing, and our mind is always changing. So I assist clients and help, and my hypnotherapists teach people to make decisions from the soul, not from the personality, because if the soul needs to be the driver of the vehicle. And in shamanism, the horse and the rider. So if we liken it to, right, the horse is the personality, right? And we can't just let the horse run around and do what it wants to do. The soul is the rider. So it's the soul that needs to be in charge of the life. But of course, we do live in a world where there is really not a lot of space for soul. And people have forgotten how to talk with soul, the language of soul. They've forgotten how to do that. And sometimes, the soul may attempt to communicate to us through dreams, but often that can be, a less than reliable process because, dreams can be used for, our dreams can be very busy because there's a lot going on. So coming into sacred relationship with soul, making decisions from soul, making, I have lost track of the clients that I've seen that have made a decision from their personality, because that's where 98% of people make their decisions from, and spend the rest of their life wondering, did I do the right thing? Maybe if I'd done something else. Whereas when we're making soul-centered decisions, for instance, we absolutely know that that is in alignment and in accord with our destiny, our path. So I don't know where we are with time, because I do have a very strange relationship with time. Mother Superior, timekeeper over there, is going to be alerting me to how we're going. Yeah. I'm good. So, so the words soul and spirit can often be bandied around in a very unknowledgeable manner. So maybe if I just describe the difference between the two, so that it's my understanding of the difference between the two. So the personality aspect of us, you're all clear about, right? That's the part of us. We have a physical body, we have a logical mind, and we have our emotions. But that's great. We need that, but we also have a soul. And the soul's that part of us that has come in on its own journey of evolution and growth. Its own journey of evolution and growth. And that, for those of you who are familiar with the tarot, is shown by the card of the sun, because the sun shows a divine child, leaving the garden and coming on its journey of growth. So we as a soul are here to grow and evolve. When a baby grows, you can have to buy it new shoes, don't you? We can see when a baby is growing or a child, because they outgrow their clothes. But you think about it this way. Our soul is always growing. Our soul outgrows people, outgrows situations. It's learned all it can learn. So many people will stay in situations and ignore the screams of the soul. And that then impacts on somebody's well-being, because there's this conflict within the psyche. We're not listening. So, drastic things can happen. Now, we might have had messages, right, you've got to leave that job. And then we ignore it, and then we get made redundant. Or there's all sorts of repercussions when we don't listen. But as I say, people have really forgotten how to hear that voice. So the soul, that part of us that is here to grow and evolve, and we outgrow our shoes. And it's really helping clients to understand to recognize, to understand that, and then to be able to make empowered soul-centered choices. So soul's here to grow and evolve, outgrows people, outgrows situations, and then it's time for the next growth spurt. It needs a new onesie. Or a new pair of shoes. And so just as we were, if you walked down the street and you saw a child in clothes that were too small for it, or shoes that were too small, what would you think? You'd think, oh my God, child abuse, child abuse. But we just stop for a moment and think, just because you can't see your soul, that the same principle applies. And so sacred relationships, so we know. So when we now look at our spirit, right, the spirit is that part of us that sends down those impulses for growth, that lets us know, hey, it's time. You know, it's time to make a change, to make a move, the next part of the adventure. And have any of you experienced that? You've felt this sort of prompting, this impulse. Yeah, and you know, you can't sort of read it in a magazine. It's an internal process, isn't it? It's an internal process. And it's a very real thing. The energy starts to come down. Now, in an ideal relationship, soul's getting that, passing it on to the personality. If we look at fairy stories, you know, they all have the prince and the princess. So here's where the fairy stories actually came from when we're looking at ancient Earth wisdom traditions. The soul is seen as feminine. So the soul is the princess. The knight in shining armor is the personality. So the relationship internally should go the princess. The soul says, I need to get out of this crappy relationship. I'm in a prison with thorns or at a castle with thorns. And the prince, the personality says, no worries, honey, I'll arrange it, and then makes things happen in the external world. So there's the internal princess. So don't have to look for Prince Charming, everyone, because you've got that aspect right there with you. That's the job of your personality, to do what your soul needs to make happen, to action it, you know, to plan it, that's the logical mind. Right, let's hatch a plan to make that work. Let's hatch a plan to leave that job. Let's hatch a plan to go where you need to go, darling. So that relationship is the most sacred relationship we can have. That's the basis. If you get that relationship right inside, then you are in a strong position to be able to have relationship of a deep meaningful connection with others. Because otherwise we're just relating pretty much at that surface level, you know. But that's not satisfying. It's not satisfying. Have you ever seen people's eyes glaze over if you try to go a bit deep? Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean, because that's that relating at just the outer level. And most people only want that, but it is not satisfying. It's not nurturing. Doesn't feed our souls. We are geared to connect deeply, madly, meaningfully, marvelously with each other at this level. We don't even have to say anything. So when working with a client, that soul-centered connection, holding that sacred space, holding that ceremonial ritual space for a sacred cauldron, a container, where something magical can happen. And it isn't the space for the conversations of the personality. They're coming in, and alchemical change happens in that space with the processes that my clients and I teach my students to take their clients through. So we live in a world, once again, where we have so much that is available to us, but people are starving. They are starving inside for deep, meaningful, soul-centered connection. And you don't have to believe in anything spiritual. You don't have to believe anything. It's just an awareness that we are more than our body, mind, emotions. We are much, much more than that. And so, yeah, that's my area of expertise. there's a brochure out there for those of you who haven't got it already. That's Esoteric Hypnosis Training Academy. And there's Crossroads Protocol, which is based on soul-centered decision-making, helping your clients to be able to do that, supporting them through making strong, empowered choices in their life. I don't know if there's enough time for questions, but if anybody has any, then I'm more than happy to answer them.